Welcome to the Episode 7 Amazing Race Canada 5 Recap Podcast. I'm Logan Saunders, and joining me, as ever, is the guy who always forgets to pronounce the E in guacamole, Michael Harmstone.
Holy guacamole.
It's similar to the game Whack-A-Mole, is what I hear. It's holy guacamole, where you just give them a lot of guac, and they're very happy moles.
That does sound like something that Amazing Race Canada would probably do as a face-off.
Yes. Mole off. And is it just me, or does it feel like this season has been going on for eternity?
Do you remember at the end of Amazing Race 29 where I said, we won't be doing Amazing Race Canada 5 probably unless something really changes? And you went, oh yeah, we will do, because we need to be completionists about this sort of thing. Is all I have to say.
Yeah, like Amazing Race 29, Amazing Race Asia 5, and even to a lesser extent Amazing Race 28, all those seasons felt like it went by really fast. I think Amazing Race Asia and Amazing Race 29 both ran for, 10 weeks?
Yeah, it's 10 weeks, plus the pre-season fun stuff.
Yeah, so 10 weeks for both of those seasons, and those felt like it went by in a flash. Like for Amazing Race Asia 5, I mean, maybe it was partially because I was preparing for my big backpacking trip, but man, it just felt like that season flew by in no time, and I was really involved with it, doing the podcast and then the predictions, and I can't believe I even had time for this at the end of last year, but like a play-by-play breakdown on Twitter for almost every single episode throughout the season. And I know like this Amazing Race Canada is 1 week extra, but we're 7 weeks in, and it feels like the season's end is just nowhere in sight. It feels like it's going to be forever to go through the remaining 4 weeks.
Anyone who listens to this podcast knows that we love talking about Amazing Race, but God, we don't want to talk about this season any longer.
I mean, in terms of like Canadian legs overall, like this isn't even the worst one for this season. It was one of the better locations they've had in quite a while, but it was still a rough go.
I think it's actually worse when we have a boring episode like this than a rubbish episode like last week where we just ended up saying the word arsehole a lot and making inappropriate jokes.
Yeah.
I think that's actually worse for us to talk about, is the boring legs where there's actually not that many jokes to be made.
How much of Corey's urination is going to occupy this podcast? Spoiler alert, probably a lot.
That pissed me off.
And here we go. But yeah, we still have the one, I presume Panama's going to be the only remaining international leg, and I don't even really remember. I only remember where the final leg is going to be for this season, and I don't even remember where the penultimate and the leg before it is going to be.
I know for certain where the final leg is, because it's not the first time they've been there, spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know what rough area the remaining two legs are, but I don't know for certain.
I have a feeling you're about to look that up.
No, I'm just double-checking whether they've actually confirmed that it's 4 more legs. I think they have.
You think it might be less?
No, it's at least 11. But they've confirmed the finale date, you see now.
Yeah, finale date is the 12th. And something that I guess we can confirm now is that they didn't do this last year, and for sure they're not going to do it this year. But it seems like from now on, we are not going to get that mid-season reunion special.
Oh no.
So if you were looking to have more scenes of Laura and Jackie from Amazing Race Canada 2, prepare to be disappointed. You will not be hearing from the random invisible teams that did not get much of an edit and were eliminated early from now on.
Well, the good news is that the After the Race special has been confirmed to be an hour again, because that's exactly what we need.
And at least it's not James Duthie this year. It's 4 people from The Social, so we're not going to have an over-the-top amount of sports references and stuff.
Give them their proper title.
The Harpies.
The Shrill Harpies from The Social. Who actually weren't that bad, to be fair to them, last year.
No, they are actually. It was the best reunion show they ever did, was the one at the end of last season.
To give them their credit, as much as they are the butt of a lot of jokes, they weren't terrible. That's as much as much enthusiasm as I can give to Amazing Race Canada right now.
Yes.
Given that, even though it's an international leg next week, the press pictures look crap again.
At least it's an international leg. It's kind of funny that they're going to Panama right after. Like, it would have been different if they did Panama when Amazing Race US hadn't done Panama since season 19. But the fact that the American version just revisited it just a few months ago, well, I guess technically over a year ago because of the hiatus, but just the fact that they chose to do it so soon after Amazing Race 29 is kind of hilarious.
Well, I think we both know that they didn't really choose to do Panama, they were kind of forced to.
Yeah, because this was the leg that was supposed to be in Kenya, right?
It was indeedy. We were going to get our first readers of Kenya since season 5.
Yeah, and I guess Panama was probably the easiest locations to book last minute, especially with its close proximities to Canada compared to other countries. Although I guess something like a place like Australia probably would have been easier to do the legal logistics and stuff for it being a Commonwealth country.
But also then they would have had to spend more money, and we can't have Amazing Race Canada actually spending money on things, can we?
Yeah, so I guess Panama was probably one, other than doing Cuba again, it's probably one of the cheapest countries in Central America to visit. Maybe Nicaragua would have been cheaper, but probably less politically stable in contrast to Panama.
And weirdly, Panama's never been visited by any mole season. Nicaragua has.
Right. Yeah.
Holland did El Salvador and Nicaragua in the same year.
Has any other version for Amazing Race visited Panama? I guess like the South American version probably has.
Yeah, the South America one definitely has. I'd be surprised if Hammerot's hasn't. Maybe that's an Amazing Race version we can cover.
Yeah. Well, we just have to learn Hebrew. Cut to Lisa Simpson from saying, "Bart, I'm not going to learn ancient Hebrew."
All we need is just some kind soul to actually sub it for us.
Which I guess Justin off of Justin Diana thought he found somebody who was going to do it, but then that guy never did. So far, as far as I know, the only English subtitles for Hammerot's Lemillion is the first 10 minutes of the very first episode.
Although, having said that, looking at the Wikipedia page, the first 7 legs have been confirmed. Wow, is all I have to say.
For Hammerot's?
Yeah.
This is Hammerot 6, eh?
It is. Hammerot 6 starts next month.
For filming?
Well, they've filmed it already. They filmed it in May and June.
Oh, okay.
But it looks like they're going to 2 places in the US again, then Mexico, then Colombia, the Netherlands, and Russia.
Which places in the US?
New York, which we knew about, and Honolulu.
Oh, okay. Man, they have a big budget.
They really do. Because Honolulu has only been visited by one other international version, I think, which was France. France did a whole Hawaii-themed leg, including the detour of shaved ice.
Speaking of Hawaii, the American version used to love going to Hawaii, either for a finale or just before the finale, and they haven't done that since season 20?
Yeah, season 20 was the last one, but they tend to go to either New York or LA for either now, don't they?
Yeah, it's always been that way for either the starting line and or the finish line each season. But yeah, it was always Hawaii or Alaska in the early days of Amazing Race, either as like a halfway point or the actual finale itself, but they've really cut back on it. Probably because they've been everywhere between those two limited locations. Yeah,
short of getting them on a boat going down Glacier Bay National Park or whatever, they've probably done most of it now.
Yeah, I'm just thinking they did it a lot. I know season 2 and 4 alone did Hawaii.
14 obviously did.
Yeah, 14 finished in Hawaii, and then it was 20?
Yep.
And season 11 had the halfway thing in Hawaii as well. And season 3. Probably because it's the easiest place to do all the crazy adventure stuff right at the end.
Yeah.
All the big stunts that would be tough to have 11 teams do.
So yeah.
Let's talk about this episode. Let's cut from, places around the world, and let's talk about Western Newfoundland.
Do we have to?
Yeah. Or, actually, there was a bit of controversy because John Montgomery pronounced it the same way as a lot of us do, saying Newfoundland, when it's really Newfoundland. You really gotta re-emphasize the ending.
Newfoundland.
Yeah, not Newfoundland. Newfoundland, I guess, is the way to pronounce it to irritate all the Newfies. But that's just the Canadian way of speaking, though. It's just it's like saying Atlanta instead of Atlanta.
There's a hilarious running joke at my dentist, because I've just been to the dentist before we started recording this, and every single time when I go, the hygienist will always be someone different. And the dentist is usually someone different as well. I don't know who the dentist I saw was today. All I know is that he was Canadian, because he was very, very Canadian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry for drilling a hole in your teeth.
Sorry for keeping you waiting.
Oh, I forgot the anesthesia.
Actually what he said, because it was just to check. He was like, oh, sorry for keeping you waiting.
Probably an expat or something, or married somebody in England.
It just made me giggle.
Was he drinking Tim Hortons coffee in between, just in between, like, oh, I'll be right back? Or second cup, I guess. Anyways, so this episode. Previously, Confusion took over a 3-team alliance. Adam and Andrea won another leg. Kevin and Ryan battled to make the grade and also battled to get more airtime for Johnny Mustard. And then Andrea and Ebony were saved for the second time this season. And then we are taken through the intro. Adam and Andrea depart at 7:52 a.m. and they find out, they're going to Western Newfoundland. And we'll be visiting Corner Brook.
Lucky them.
They haven't done Newfoundland in a while, like since the first season they had a full leg in Newfoundland, and then this season, it's really odd. People were commenting on this too, that they had the starting in Newfoundland, just like one task, and then they were taken away, and now they're going back to just being probably a couple 100 kilometers from the starting line. What up with that?
Yeah, I think production maybe thought, maybe Megan and Courtney will go first, so we need to make sure that they don't just go to Newfoundland.
Yes, give them more places to visit. Give them Fort Mac and Vancouver.
And then they cast Aaron and Deb just to make sure.
Yeah. At least you guys went from coast to coast.
But I also love how after I released last week's maybe slightly controversial podcast, I think it's one of our more interesting podcasts that we've ever done. I do like that after we released that, it got into people's heads that actually, yeah, maybe the Johnny Mustard thing was not as spontaneous as they think.
Yeah. It was not. It was the exact opposite of spontaneous. It was very well planned.
Yeah. It was very, very, very well planned.
Yeah, and for once, the location they visit in Canada, they are able to tie the tasks into it by having a Viking task eventually this leg. And then the rest of it, not very Newfie.
Yep, maybe they could have, flown them to a Scandinavian country and had the Viking task.
No, you can do it right here in your home, Michael. Come on now. And yes, it is true that the Vikings were the first people to really colonize Newfoundland. So it was kind of neat to see that task. I'm not going to be completely down on this leg. But the rest of it was like, wow, anytime they go to a remote location, either on the East Coast or one of the islands on the West Coast or in the territories, there's always some sort of paddling task. You need that scenery on the water.
And what do you know? The detour does feature paddling.
Yes, detour. Yes, paddling and Vikings. So at the start of this leg, we hear the infamous hat trick statement that we hear almost every season whenever a team wants to go for 3 consecutive leg wins. It's an Amazing Race Canada tradition that dates all the way back to Jet and Dave. And then Sam Paul depart at 8:32 a.m. And of course, Sam mentions the suspense of waiting to see if he gets into med school. Spoiler alert, that gets resolved by the end of this episode. And it's throwing off his game. And then we get this random, yeah, from them too, which I wrote down. Yeah, we're going to Newfoundland.
The first time anyone has ever been excited about going to Newfoundland.
It's before the summer. Yeah, we're going to Newfoundland not only in the middle of April, but at the start of May too. Well, screw you, July and August.
It's Canada's favourite summertime adventure, though, despite the fact that it was filmed in the dead of Newfoundland winter.
Yeah, even that leg, even with it looked like the best day Newfoundland has that time of year, and it still looked miserable there. It wasn't as windy as the starting line, so I guess the 3 weeks did make a big difference, but it went from being terrible to bearable?
Yeah, to not as bad.
To not, yes. And then Corey and Ivana depart at 10 a.m., then Karen and Bert at 10:02 a.m.
Other way around.
Then Kevin and Ryan at what?
It's the other way around. Corey and Ivana checks in fourth.
Oh, okay, whatever. There's too many. I just do the initials for the teams.
As do I.
So there's way too many Ks. There's Corey and Ivana, Karen and Bert, and Kevin and Ryan, and they all departed in a row.
Yeah, just going back to the Sam's med school thing, I'm not a big fan of teams getting messages from home. At the risk of sounding like Michelle, I'm not a big fan of these repeated video clues of, oh, we love you. It's like, it takes people out of the race. I don't want to see people get out of the race. I want to see people win.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see this sort of thing ruin Sam's race occasionally.
I didn't mind like the finish line sprint phone thing with season 10 and 11, just because both of those sprint conversations produced hilarious moments with Tyler off of Tyler and James with his mom saying, "What?" Even though she knew full well that the only reason why there's cameras in her house and the reason why she's receiving a phone call is because her son just won the Amazing Race. And then Eric's conversation with Jeremy, which ruined the whole idea of emotion at the end of a season. Bro, we won All-Stars. But unfortunately, because it's mid-race, all these conversations are really over-the-top emotional. And there's very few funny moments within them. So it takes us out of the episode. It's like, yeah, I guess that's kind of cool that Sam got into med school. They couldn't even say what med school he got into because the university probably didn't pay for a sponsor spot on Amazing Race Canada. So all that Sam's mom could say is, you got into the med school of your first choice. Imagine if he gets home and she's like, oh yeah, you got into this school. And then he's like, that was not my first choice, Mom. No, that was nowhere near it. That was my first realistic choice.
Yeah, the good news is that Amazing Race Canada 6 will probably visit Sam's med school when they do pay for a sponsorship.
Yeah, it's like the BMO Make-A-Wish thing or whatever it is, and they visit Sam at his med school. We helped pay for all of Sam's tuition, all $200,000 that he's going to have to spend to go to med school.
Yeah, but like Hammerots does this occasionally of having messages from home halfway around, and Amazing Race Australia did it. I'm not a huge fan of it because, like, I don't care at all. They see these people like a week later.
Amazing Race Asia 4 had a funny one, if I recall correctly. Oh no, they had two of them, because... Oh yeah, Amazing Race Asia 2, Mark and Revilson's call from home was from a contestant who would be cast for Amazing Race Asia 3.
And also, this season, it sort of ruins it with the fact that Kevin and Ryan had that set up with their brother last week. That sort of takes any emotion out of family messages.
Right, it'd be like, oh, there's Johnny Mustard again. He's just... we just saw him yesterday.
Yeah, it sort of takes the emotion out of family messages when literally you saw a member of your family the day before.
I will say the highlight of the whole thing was seeing Ozzy the dog just jumping around, trolling the whole video message. Just wanting attention.
Yeah, but contrary to popular belief, dogs can't talk. They might be able to fly planes and play basketball, but they can't talk.
They need a talking dog, I think, for the next call from home. That's the only way you're going to top it.
And yeah, teams have $450 for this leg of the race in Newfoundland.
Did you I guess somebody was saying on Reddit, they looked this up, and for Amazing Race Canada, it's surprising because it very rarely happens where somebody knows something about the race that we don't know. And they said that the contestants have to give back the money at the end of each leg.
Really?
Yeah, that's what they were claiming on the Reddit page.
That's interesting.
So that's why when Andrew and Ebony had to give up when they got hustled in the Chinese taxi, that production was freaking out because I guess if it was a regular season, they would in fact have had a lot of money as backup, and they would have to be really stupid to give up that much money to a Chinese taxi. But I guess it was just the money for that leg of the race, which makes a hell of a lot more sense when you think about how much money they've gotten for each episode.
Yeah, what do they do when it comes to, like, the double length leg in China?
Well, they gave them that yen, remember?
Yeah, but, like, do they have to give that money back?
Maybe not in a double length leg, because they got the Canadian dollars, then they were given the yen. And there wouldn't have been time to surrender your money before you had to take off instantly. And we need to go back and see if all the $1 and $2 legs, the Looney and Tooney legs, have in fact all been self-drive legs. Which I think the Looney leg was, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it has.
Because the Ottawa leg was $1, and wasn't that all self-drive?
Well, they had to get to Reichenbach Falls, or whatever it's called. And then it was self-drive from there.
And when it was just $1 last leg?
Yeah, it was definitely $1 last leg. So I think someone might be wrong.
Yeah. So Andrew and Ebony did just waste that much money on a taxi. I'm going to have to look into this further. Because that's a pretty big claim to be certain about, that the Canadian teams have to surrender all their money at the end of each leg. Like, where do they hear that from in the first place?
Do some research.
Probably just ask Wayne. Wayne would probably know something like that.
And yeah, everyone thinks that Andrea and Ebony got eliminated in the last leg, and Ebony is pissed at Corey and Ivana for U-turning them.
Even though she was planning to U-turn them. She can't stand fake people that she's about to U-turn, Michael. Just another one of those funny unintentional moments from Andrea and Ebony where it's like, you're thinking, okay, Andrea and Ebony, just pause for a second and think about the words that came out of your mouth.
It is a little bit ironic.
Yes. I can't stand fake people that we desperately wanted out of this race. And then we get the awkward confrontation with Adam and Andrea, which wasn't as awkward as the previews made it out to be, because Adam and Andrea apologized the whole time and said, oh man, we feel so horrible, which you can tell by the look on Andrea's face that she genuinely did feel horrible. That, well, I mean, I think Andrea and Ebony still would have been in last because Kevin and Ryan beat them by 50 minutes. And I think Karen and Bert still would have beaten them as well. So I don't think the U-turn really impacted who came in last leg. But it is kind of funny that Adam and Andrea genuinely felt horrible about screwing that up.
Yeah, I think Adam and Andrea did actually feel bad about this happening.
Mm-hmm. And I bet they would have done something for Andrea and Ebony this round if they asked for a favor.
Oh, almost certainly.
And which probably would have been enough to save Andrea and Ebony, given how the double battle was essentially an equalizer this leg, semi-equalizer.
We're gonna get there, but the double battle is crap, isn't it?
It did not get much airtime. I think we only saw about 1% of the double battle from each round. Yeah, there's not a whole lot. We get the special. They refer to the clue at the BMO branch in Corner Brook as the special clue. And they self-drive all the way to the BMO in Corner Brook. Messages from home. Do we really need to? I have nothing to say about the calls from home other than what we said earlier.
Nope.
Was there any other unintentional funny moments from the calls from home?
Nope. I have exactly one note for this area of the episode, which is Sam gets into med school. Definitely not a setup.
You know what would be great is if next season Sam and Paul come back for All-Stars. They get the same call from home, and it's his mom saying, hey Sam, we just heard back, and you flunked out of your first year of med school. And then they can use the same crying footage that Sam and Paul had this round of him getting into med school. And they also and plus you still haven't paid all the tuition for the second half of the first year. I hope that 15-day trip to China will cheer you up. And then, let's see. Oh, we get a lot of givers. We got a lot of givers during the phone call from home. And just, how many givers were there in this leg, Michael? I know last week was 14?
There was only 3. And on that note, I was incredibly proud of the fact that there was the same amount of the word arsehole as there was of giver.
So what's our running total now?
About 50 bajillion.
What's the real total so far?
It was 14 in week 1, 2 in week 2, 6 in week 3, 4 in week 4, none in week 5, 14 last week, and 3 this week, which gives us a total of 43.
43 through 7 episodes, which is an average of 6? Just over 6 per episode.
Just over 6 per episode, yeah, including the fact that they had a 0 in there.
There's been more givers than footage of Laura and Jackie.
And that's the second joke about Laura and Jackie you've made this week. Usually we pick Sharla and Nabila from that season.
Damn it, I was trying to not mention Sharla and Nabila, and you ruined it.
Story of my life, I ruin a lot of things.
Yeah, let's see. So yeah, and then of course we get the unison giver of, what was it, 4 people saying giver at once in the video message from home, and I'm pretty sure Ozzy barked the word giver. They also need a parrot for when Kevin and Ryan, God forbid, do All-Stars. And there's like 5 parrots along with the family members, and all the parrots are trying to say, "Giver! Giver!
Giver, motherfucker!"
It's like Sergeant Dokes from Dexter. Giver, motherfucker!
You really think that they would be invited back for All-Stars?
Nothing Amazing Race Canada does anymore would surprise me.
Because I don't think that the public reaction to them has been overwhelmingly positive.
It's getting increasingly positive, though. That's what worries me.
Well, that's because they're going to win.
We've had now 2 episodes in Newfoundland, one on each coast, from the coast to coast of Newfoundland. But have they done anything in the Labrador part of Newfoundland? Like on the mainland?
Didn't they do something in Labrador in the penultimate leg of Amazing Race 1? Amazing Race Canada 1?
Oh, they might have.
I think they took a ferry from Newfoundland to Labrador.
Okay, did tasks there or something?
Yeah.
Okay, so they've really covered Canada.
Yeah.
What would amaze me the most is if they're able to do another leg in Nunavut. Because that was a very isolated leg. Do you remember that episode, Michael?
I do. It was the one with the roadblock of eating the whale blubber.
Yes. PETA loved that one. But yeah, there was nobody in the Nunavut leg. There's only one person for every 65 square kilometers or something ridiculous, I think it is, in all of Nunavut.
Nothing Amazing Race Canada has ever done will surprise me now.
So let's see. And as soon as teams get their clue, they have to go to Gros Morne National Park. And once they get there, the national park is probably the coolest visual I've seen in all of Newfoundland. Once they get to a national park, the detour is Find Your Dory or Family Story. Find Your Dory is your basic paddling task. Retrieve your clue from the lobster trap, then return to shore. And then Family Story, it's a classic memorization task, one of many this episode, where teams have to remember a bunch of oral stories, including one from Zach Galifianakis, and then put together a family tree, which is one of the more unique memory tasks, but still a memory task for Amazing Race Canada nonetheless.
It is, and also the detour was incredibly imbalanced.
That paddling task seemed a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, it took about 5 minutes.
10 minutes if you're Corey and Ivana, 15 minutes because 5 minutes of it is Corey paddling by himself. And it's kind of funny that Corey and Ivana, that Ivana didn't do paddling until after Corey had to go to the bathroom, so the first half is him vigorously paddling to get to shore, or to get to the lobster trap just so he could piss. And Ivana does not help at all, so he's like, you gotta get there fast, the streaming water is not helping. And then as soon as he's all relieved, then Ivana pitches in and takes him to shore. And this was a very Big Brother Canada-esque scene to watch, including the sound effects for it too. The oonts, 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 oonts music that played.
I mean, this brought back flashbacks of Sally and Tyson.
Yes, but it was never... They didn't use, EDM before when Tyson was urinating in the woods.
At least it was a rock formation rather than a Russian staircase or whatever it was that Tyson pissed on.
Yes. Or if you're Herb from Amazing Race 15 and 18 and 24, then you just piss outside of onto a national library.
Isn't that one of the many reasons that people hate the Globetrotters?
Yes, it is. The fact that they pissed on a UNESCO site. Remember, Michael, when we were in Amsterdam and went to all the Amazing Race locations, what if we went to Vienna together and tried to find, the urine stains of flight time in the middle of Vienna? It's like, oh man, Amazing Race history was made here.
Well, the great thing is, 2.5 months after we went to Amsterdam, I did actually go to Austria. I went to Salzburg on my own before meeting up with you in London.
Right.
And I couldn't be bothered running up all the hills to find the right castle that the pit stop was at, but I went to Salzburg nevertheless.
Yes.
And also, Corey and Ivana were nearly taken to a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Bangkok, or in Ayutthaya to be more precise.
Oh yeah, in the taxi when they were going the wrong direction.
Yeah, because Ayutthaya itself is entirely a World Heritage Site.
Entirely?
Yes. Deliberate pun.
Yeah. Lol would be so happy.
And Paul says that he's rowed before.
It's a good thing that Lol can still listen to this podcast. It's a good thing that he's blind instead of deaf.
Yeah, I am considering introducing audio description for the podcast, so.
Yes.
Logan says something unfunny.
Michael sighs.
Yes, Michael does not want to cover this shit show of a season anymore.
My God, I have nothing else to really I had the most boring notes for this episode for a good chunk of it.
Yeah. On the plus side, we do have some fun moments from this detour. Like the fact that Ivana doesn't know what oars are, for example.
Yes, did Corey and Ivana turn into Dan and Rhea by not knowing what an oar is? But the thing is, in Ivana's defense, she was born in Serbia. English is not her first language, and if she's in the gym and never goes out paddling, then she's not going to know what an oar is. Meanwhile, Dan and Rhea have been born and raised in Canada and have absolutely no excuse as to why they don't know what an oar is.
I thought an oar was someone who hangs around on a street corner on weekends.
Yes. Yeah, we don't pronounce the H. It's like Spanish.
It's just like we were pronouncing Newfoundland wrong, we were also pronouncing whole wrong.
Yes. And let's see. What's an oar? Oh, I have a really inappropriate joke about the detour, and it doesn't involve Corey. All the teams were given yellow raincoats. So I was thinking, man, that would have been really misleading for Kevin and Ryan when they were told that they'd have to put on a yellow raincoat, because they probably were so stupid about it that they thought it was some sort of Chinese condom.
This is the level we stoop to when it's this bad an episode.
But yeah, and the only reason why I even saw this joke in my notes, I was just like skimming through, and then I wrote down the words Asian condom joke, and then I had to read the lines before. I'm like, I don't remember an Asian condom joke, and then I remember, oh yes, yellow raincoats.
And one other moment from the BMO task, Karen has a particularly understated reaction to seeing her daughter on a screen.
Apparently, Karen and Bert are going to be so lost after the season is over that their daughter will be a teenager by the time they find their way back to Edmonton. It'll be like Odysseus trying to get back from the war.
This is what happens when you take directions from Andrea and Ebony.
Yes. Adam and Andrea and Ebony, how do we... Well, Adam and Andrea too, I guess, in the early legs. How do we get back to Edmonton? Oh, you just go east. Damn it.
Damn it, guys, the crazy Quebecois.
Yeah. Oh no, we've hit Newfoundland.
And also, Adam and Andrea's choice of detour was entirely motivated by the fact they're from an Italian family, and Adam saying Italia made me laugh a lot.
Yeah. Familia Italia.
He looks so pleased with himself.
Yes. And then, of course, they actually get through this task fairly quickly. They preserve their position.
Yeah, they leave in second.
Yeah. So the detour wasn't imbalanced as we thought.
No. I'm assuming the north side of the detour was a lot nearer than the paddling side.
Yeah. What's surprising for Yvonne is, after she asked, what's an oar, that did not prompt her to choose the other side of the detour. If you don't know what a thing is that you're about to use, you may not be well equipped to perform that task.
Isn't Or her nickname for her partner? Sorry, that's Core.
Core, yes. Now the K is silent. You're just dropping letters left and right, Michael.
I am. Dropping arseholes last week, dropping letters this week.
Yes.
Also, before they attempt the detour, Andrew and Evie have their speed bump, which is a typically useless task. So they have to shoot a bow and arrow and score 25 points combined to continue on to the detour. And this is just where it gets filthy. Let's be honest.
Yes.
My next sort of 5 notes are just out of context dirt quotes now.
And before we get to Andrew and Ebony at the speed bump, what about Maid Dunn's hair? In the video message from home, she has amazing hair. That was Ebony's mom, I believe.
But at the speed bump, Ebony does say, "I don't understand why it's not going in."
Yes. And then and then I even wrote down that Ebony has cheek strains when she tries to pull back the bow.
Yeah. Have you ever tried using a bow and arrow?
Man, 5th grade. Does Wii Sports count? Does Wii Sports Resort count too?
No.
What about Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games?
No. The only thing that counts for Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games is that wonderful video of Bowser doing rhythmic gymnastics, which if you've never seen, it's awesome.
I'll have to play that minigame as Bowser.
It's the best. Nintendo themselves tweeted out a clip of it because it is just awesome.
My leotard is in another castle, guys. Twiddly-dee, twiddly-dee, twiddly-dee.
And also at the speed bump, Andrea says, "Nice deep breath, get it in, nice and slow."
Yes, get it in. Just get it in there. It'll be smooth. Just get it into that bullseye.
And also at their detour, Dre says this guy was busy.
Who was busy?
Odin, I think it was. It might have been Thor. It was one of them.
Oh, and he has all those kids. It's like, man, it's like, what? Imagine if they did this task in ancient Egypt and they had Ramses as one of the storytellers. Yeah. That family tree would be massive. Or if they go to the a Mongolian village and it's Genghis Khan. It's like, man, we really should have chosen the other side of this detour. Or knowing Amazing Race Canada's budget, they would just end up being stuck going to Wilt Chamberlain's house.
I have no idea who that is.
Wilt Chamberlain is a really famous basketball player. I believe he was the first player to score 100 points in a game. And he's just a basketball legend. And he has the record, unconfirmed though, but he is known to have the record for sleeping with the most women out of anybody on the planet. Nobody's had more sex than he has. And they figured out that he has had sex so many times that he would have had to have sex every single day since he turned 15.
Okay.
And apparently I read more into this, and the story, I guess, on how they determined this number was that him and a couple of buddies, I think this was right around when he retired or just after he retired, where they went out on some 1 week vacation to Hawaii. And they were going to see who could sleep with the most women in the span of 1 week, and they would do a tally mark after each woman they slept with. Really noble stuff that they're doing here.
Oh yeah,
and
saving lives.
Saving lives. Well, it depends if or creating lives, more like it. And I guess on the pace that Wilt Chamberlain was at by the end of the week, that's how they determined that number. And I don't think any of them were threesomes. It was just one-on-one action, as they say. So there you go, Michael. Now you know who Wilt Chamberlain is.
Wilt Chamberlain, professional whore. Sorry, whore.
A gigolo who could dribble that basketball like nobody else. He always shoots from beyond the arc. Which is kind of funny because there's another really famous basketball player named Dr. J. It's like Wilt Chamberlain and Dr. J are considered the two most legendary basketball players of all time. No joke. Okay, so Karen and Bert really love dressing up in costumes. They like to choose a tree that lost a yonder.
Yeah, they mention it every single time. They just love dressing up.
They love roleplay. And when Adam does the family tree task, he looks very serious. He's very intense at most of these challenges. Have you noticed that?
I have. It's the new running joke of Intense Adam.
Just as intense as Andrea firing an arrow into a target. And Kevin and Ryan struggle with paddling. These guys, do so many adventure sports in the water, yet they have to pretend that the boat is a canoe.
They have no idea how to row a boat. Just like how they have no idea how to not get a season rigged for them, or have no idea how to actually tell jokes.
And Sam and Paul are laughing at them.
And that is rude.
Oh yeah, when Andrea does the bow and arrow task too, she has this really suggestive exhale after each attempt. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't want to pull the trigger on a face cream clip just yet, especially for such a terrible episode to talk about.
Especially when Corey does his grunting when urinating, and they show the grunt multiple times.
We're getting close to a face cream clip, I think.
You just have to mix it in with Corey and Andrea. And Andrea makes so many random sound effects too, just holding onto words an extra 2 seconds too long. Did you notice that this round too? That she's like, yeah! Or, fire!
I did not, but
go back and watch this episode if you want to, just for the Andrea clips. And she breaks out into, I think it happens a few times in the season too, where I had it down in my notes. But Andrea gets very cartoony with the way she talks.
Interesting.
And then, let's see. Oh, and then Sam and Paul not only ridicule Kevin and Ryan, but they also ridicule Ivana for her contribution to the paddling. And then Sam and Paul finish this detour so quickly that they already find out it's a Canada 150 challenge.
Right, seriously though, how on earth can this be a Canada 150 challenge? It's bowling.
Because 5-pin bowling was invented in Canada.
I know, the definition of a Canada 150 challenge has been very loose so far this season, but to try and claim bowling is something ridiculous that I didn't even think Amazing Race Canada had in them.
My prediction for Season 6 is that field hockey and lacrosse are probably going to be the next two 150 challenges. Or 2-on-2 basketball. Because we invented basketball too, actually.
Seriously?
Yeah, we invented basketball because there was it's even part of we have a series of clips called the Heritage Minute that was produced back in the 90s, but I think they still do the occasional one now. And one of them was of a guy who invented basketball. I think he was also the guy who, because originally I think somebody always had to retrieve the basketball from the hoop each time because it was just they still had the bottom on the basket on. And then I think he came up with the idea of, maybe if we cut the hole out of the bottom of the basket, that'll be a lot better. And that's what he did, which made basketball at that time only a game slightly slower than baseball.
It's like, it gets to a point with Amazing Race Canada where they just really are ridiculous people. Like, I know we're both going to be watching Amazing Race Canada regardless of the fact we're not podcasting about it. I'm putting my foot down now. But if they try and claim basketball as a 150 challenge, like, that's beyond a joke.
151 challenge. And I love how when Andrea and Adam are doing the detour, how she has to explain to Adam that they are siblings.
What's a sibling?
Yes. It's like, man, do you guys just not know words?
Where did they find these people from where they don't know what the word sibling is, despite the fact they're racing with their sibling?
Yeah. But yeah, she's like, yeah, they're siblings. Just like we're siblings, right, Adam? It's like, yeah, I think Adam knows you guys are brother and sister. I really hope he does.
If we're not siblings, then this is going to get really awkward really fast.
Yeah. Or just roommates for a really long amount of time. Or somebody just found out they're adopted.
This is when it's going to get awkward.
And then Kevin and Ryan finish the detour in third and find out that it's a double battle and they want to beat the boys, which is somehow not a euphemism, especially after just putting on yellow raincoats.
Yellow raincoats are not going to be a thing.
Not when Kevin and Ryan are your biggest endorsement of it, or smallest endorsement, knowing them.
What you're saying is they're more like the General from Survivor Marquesas.
Yes, yes, they have little sausage.
And Odin proves to be definitely mean, if nothing else.
What does Odin exactly say?
He was just really abrupt with people. It was kind of hilarious how mean he was.
How the fuck do you not know your siblings?
John, you snake motherfucker!
No, Kevin and Ryan. Johnny Mustard is not one of my descendants. Alright, let's stop there.
So yeah, it's a double battle / 150 challenge, and this is where I want to kill myself repeatedly. Teams must compete against each other in 5-pin bowling. The team with the high score after 10 frames gets a clue. The losers face the next team. Last team there faces a penalty. And you know the best thing about this? The fact that it was entirely pointless because everyone left in the order they arrived.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've had a double battle where actually nothing changes.
That's just sad.
And apparently Adam had lots of bowling parties when he was a child.
Well, if you get further eastward in Canada, the weather sucks too much and you're bound to be stuck inside bowling a lot.
Yeah, I had bowling parties as a child.
I never did.
You probably had, like, fishing parties and water skiing parties or something.
Parties at the beach, that's for sure. Actually, that's what I did this year.
I know it is. What we need to do for your birthday next year is get you to meet Alan Wu in Singapore or something.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I am hoping that JK arranges something when I'm in Singapore next year. Just putting it out there, JK, if you are listening, 100% I will want to meet Alan Wu if he's around.
He'll probably make you have to do a stunt or something in order to meet Alan Wu.
As long as I don't have to drink the shots of whatever the hell Wu had to drink on Fear Factor, I'll be fine.
How badly do you want to meet Alan Wu? And you have to match his number.
I can't remember what it was that Wu drunk.
It was a lot. It was definitely too much.
Yeah, at that point I would start thinking, do I really want to meet Wu that much? The answer is almost certainly still yes, but... And, yeah, bowling is so boring that even on the first round they just skip straight to the 9th frame.
Yeah, every time they do that. They show the first frame and a little bit of the final frame.
And that's it, because this is a really tedious double battle.
Like, the longest clip was either just, a team getting a clutch shot with a strike at the end, or Karen and Bert's infamous breakdancing, followed by 3 gutter balls when they had the lead. They only had to knock down 2 pins, and they would have beaten Kevin and Ryan.
They had one job to get Kevin and Ryan eliminated, and they let us down.
And then, both Andrea and Ebony did the granny style of bowling.
Yes, they did. And once teams complete the double battle, it's the roadblock, which is Who's Da Bomb, which I'm pretty sure that Amazing Race Canada has used before.
Before we get to that, Andrea mocked Adam pretty good at the double battle when Adam's like, yeah, I love bowling. And then he gets a couple of gutter balls, and then Andrea says, he loves bowling, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's good at it.
It's like, oh, snap.
Yeah, that's a sister burn.
And yeah, it's the roadblock, which is Who's Da Bomb. And in this roadblock, one team member must memorise 12 jokes from a list of 50 and perform them to a crowd to get their next clue. If they don't get the next clue, they instead get pelted with rotten fruit, because it's Newfoundland.
Yes. And the double battle ultimately makes the speed bump pointless, just like it usually is, unless you're Reed and Yvette. And Andrew and Ebony get to catch up to the double battle and are guaranteed a 50-50 shot at not being last by the end of the task. If there wasn't that double battle, and if there wasn't that speed bump either, I bet they would be in a worse position than they are at this moment.
Well, yeah, because they had to self-drive, and they're notoriously bad at self-driving.
And how full was Corey's bladder there during the detour task?
I know, it took forever.
Yeah, I'm worried. I think Corey needs to get himself tested for either an enlarged prostate or diabetes or something, because nobody should be urinating that much, or for that long.
I mean, it says it all that Amazing Race Canada chose to show us literally every minuscule second of him pissing.
Yeah, they should have a timer going on the side.
Last week they showed us an extended view of a horse's arsehole. This week they showed us an extended view of Corey pissing. It's like, thanks guys, this is really what I want to watch.
Accompanied by the Serbian dance squad in the process, with synchronized with music.
And you knew this episode was going to be really bad when actually they didn't release a single press picture for it. And the press pictures that are currently on the website are actually screen grabs from the episode, rather than the actual press pictures.
Wow. Poor Newfoundland.
And next week's press pictures look dreadful as well.
Dana and Amanda need to pursue legal action.
Thank you, Newfoundland. And Labrador.
And John Montgomery demonstrates the speed bump, where he gets it on the first shot from what we see. I wonder if that's the rule with Monty, is that his demonstration only makes the episode if he gets it on the first try. He's a one-take kind of guy. It's like do you know the Jay-Z challenge, Michael?
No.
Where I think Jay-Z offered $40,000 or whatever it was to somebody who could perform one of his songs or do some sort of task or stunt. I don't know too much about it, but you have to do some sort of ridiculous feat, and it all has to be done in one take without any editing, and then you get a bunch of money from Jay-Z, or as we call him in Canada, Jay-Z.
We call him Jay-Z as well.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually currently over here as well. He's performing at a festival today.
Oh, cool.
That the guy I sit next to at work is at. Not jealous at all. And yeah, it is Sam, Andrea, Kevin, Bert, Ivana, and Ebony doing this roadblock.
Monty tried his hand at a stand-up comedy, and the audience did not like it. But the thing is, though, when Monty was being pelted by the audience, he had all the ingredients necessary to make a great Campbell soup. Good.
And, fun fact, the crowd at the comedy gig actually laughed more when seeing this episode, because of how bad it was, than at the actual races.
Yes, and for them to laugh that much at the same jokes over and over, not just the same jokes, the same lame jokes, I see three options really with the audience. Were they A, drunk, B, high, C, drunk and high?
I'm going to go C, drunk and high.
And the thing is that Swirsky's had to stay open all night because everybody ended up passing out inside the comedy club. Oh, and Karen and Bert, you would think would have done better at the double battle and not choke at the very end, because they shook hands with a god.
They did. They gave them god powers.
And I like how Odin was unintentionally Edwin Starr when Karen and Bert failed their first attempt at the task, because he just screams, "Do it again!
Do it again, Liz!"
Play it again, Sam.
On the subject of Mike and Liz, they're actually proud that they're not out of the rank down yet.
Yes. Yes, they are. We made it to the top 200, Liz.
Apart from those bastards Joey and Megan who are gonna get U-turned, Liz.
Oh, I think this might have been at the bowling task with Andrea and Ebony. It's got to be Andrea because, oh yeah, they did the paddling task. That's right. So when Andrea and Ebony are paddling, Andrea said, "Put your back into it." And I was really hoping that she would complete the phrase and say, "Put your back into it," like a grandma do it.
Or you can do it, put your ass into it.
That was last week's lyrics, Michael. This is, they moved on from jokes about a horse's anus to lyrics by Big Boy and Andre 3000.
And if we were on the race, who would have done this roadblock?
Me?
Correct, you would have. As a self-described comedian, you would have had to do this roadblock.
Yes.
Because we would have opened it and gone, yeah, that's totally you.
I wouldn't have gone like Michael Richards extreme, but if I had failed on my first attempt, I would have just sworn at the audience as much as possible and make fun of Newfoundland as possible. Or if I knew I was going to screw it up, I probably would have ad-libbed it with my own jokes that insulted Newfoundland, and I probably would have thrown the fruits and vegetables, some of it back at the audience, and then also eaten some of the vegetables that they were coming at me because I'm a vegetarian. I would have been like, "Oh, yeah, I was expecting to have cheesecake thrown at me." Or let's see, "Oh man, this is the most attention anybody's received in Newfoundland since Dane and Amanda were on The Amazing Race." Or it's like, "Yeah, too bad nobody's watching this episode." Or what else? There's gotta be better insults.
I think the reason they probably gave them a list is because most of these racers would have come up with dirty answers.
Yes.
And that's not the sort of task you can show on TV. Officially, I mean, they did show a lot of a horse's arsehole last week, so anything goes. And there is really not a lot to say about this task, let's be honest.
Holy guacamole! Or in Ebony's case, guacamole.
Whole guacamole.
Did she lose if she mispronounces the word?
I'm not sure.
And then I was like, "What's an or?" There was no funny jokes in there. It's like, I remember like, a woman's heart beats faster than a man's heart because we're more prone to heart attacks, heart disease. Or, oh, this was the best part about the whole task. When, who was it? I think it was Andrea, where she had to tell the joke saying, "Oh man, there's all these studies about, about how bad all the heart disease is. And you know what causes it? Constantly talking about these studies." I think it was Ivana who had to say that joke, actually. And then, I kid you not, they cut to somebody in the audience who was extremely overweight and looked kind of like John Goodman. That was who they panned to. I'm thinking, oh man, the funniest part of the task wasn't even any of the jokes. It was just the unintentional editing to a fat guy in the audience while talking about heart disease and obesity.
What about the stop sign when Bert was practicing outside?
What about that?
When Bert was practicing outside and told a terrible joke, they just panned over to a stop sign.
Just stop?
Yeah, did you not spot that?
I remember reading about it online, but I didn't put two and two together.
It was one of the best bits of the episode, which, to be fair, isn't saying much.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Karen and Bert, what was with the Jamaican music playing while they were breakdancing at the bowling task?
I have no idea.
That was a very random soundtrack. Or the fact that one of the teams got the cowboy music theme when they got their message from home. Oh, and then, of course, Kevin and Ryan go really over the top with saying that Kevin is the bomb. Which is very fitting because Kevin did bomb during the comedy act.
But at least Sam gave us the mantra of the podcast.
It was my favorite quote about the whole thing. He said, there was 50 jokes in here, and all of them are duds. It's like, man, he just described our TV Warriors in one sentence. We've got our log line.
Yeah, he definitely listened to last week's podcast. Yeah, that was the one preview you gave me of the episode before I watched it, because I didn't watch it till Thursday. Was you're just going to love one line in the comedy task. And, yes, Sam and Paul leaving first, and they have to now find the Captain James Cook lookout, the pit stop for this leg of the race. The last team to check in may be eliminated.
Yep, and somebody dresses up as Captain James Cook.
And they win a trip back to Newfoundland to Rio.
What?
Because you never need to leave the country again. They're going to Rio, Newfoundland.
Sam and Paul managed to dodge both the Chicago trip and the 5-city Canada trip. They've won the 15-day trip to China and now a trip to Rio. They definitely lucked out this season. They got the two best prizes in 7 episodes.
They are officially jammy bastards.
Yes. Oh, and Andrea accidentally quotes Last Comic Standing when her and Sam were studying the jokes because she said the exact words, "I know I am funnier than Sam," which is how they cast their vote in the early seasons of Last Comic Standing. Is they go into a booth and they say, "I know I'm funnier than," and then whoever they vote for, the person that receives the highest number of votes goes into the duel, and then that person picks somebody to duel in a stand-up comedy act.
And Kevin leaves second, which means him and Ryan checking in second, and then it's Adam and Andrea in third, Karen and Bert in fourth, Corey and Ivana in fifth, and Andrea and Ebony in last, and they are eliminated from the race.
Wow, you just skipped over a whole page of my notes.
That's because I have nothing left to say about this episode.
Let's see. Oh yeah, I will wrote down, like, why is the audience laughing? Why are they playing Seinfeld music while people are doing their stand-up act? I think Jerry Seinfeld would feel pretty insulted. Oh, after Sam gets his clue, Paul says, "That was the best thing I have ever seen." Really? Repeated jokes? Repeated lame jokes arranged by production at a Newfoundland comedy club, performed by your partner, it was the best thing you've ever seen? Not, the Great Wall of China, or some of those temples in Bangkok? You had to go with a stand-up comedy act at a small comedy club in a small Newfoundland town?
I would just love someone to go up and go, "What's the thing about airline food?"
Do people actually use those razors on the plane? How do you get the peanuts out of the bag? And Kevin said that the jokes were all dad jokes, so it makes you wonder, how many of those jokes were written by Lowell?
I'm going to guess 50.
All 50 of them. Something he does when he's not cycling. And then production's like, just give us your best material, Lowell, come on. We need ideas. I wish they would have asked us for jokes. It would have been 49 of them, probably would have been about Shala and Nabila.
I know exactly why they didn't ask us for jokes, because it would have been like, James Duthie is so useless.
Yes. It would have been all, and then the 50th would have been about James Duthie.
And they have now opened the hashtag for us to send in, or to spam them with stupid questions as well.
Oh yeah, after the race hashtag. So any listeners out there, come up with the most inappropriate questions you can ask the racers, and remember to use the hashtag after the race.
I've got a great one that I've thought of. But I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to tweet it out after the podcast.
Okay.
They are so not going to use this question.
I'm surprised that Bert didn't get the jokes on this first attempt, because I've seen clips of him performing slam poetry, which is kind of a similar style to how he performs stand-up comedy. And even when he was rehearsing, he was trying to turn it into slam poetry a bit, with just the rhythm and the pacing of how he was performing it and rehearsing it.
So he should have left in first, really.
Yeah. Somehow Kevin was allowed to leave. I was amused that Bert was using a stool to protect himself from the fruit and vegetables, and then Kevin was just protecting his crotch. Oh, and then Bert's, of course, Gerald Ford-esque walk onto the stage by blatantly tripping on his way up there. Which is probably, and incidentally enough, most of the audience was tripping too while watching these stand-up acts. Let's see. Oh yeah, I wrote down that Andrea made more cartoon faces as they approached the comedy task, and Andrea and Ebony could have had a much better strategy at the double battle with the bowling, because I think at least Ebony was, maybe both of them were doing the granny style of bowling, and I think what they should have done is just bowl. If you're the last two teams, just bowl as fast as you can, because then you can catch up to the other teams a lot faster. Because if the final match is the slowest match, then you're the two teams that are going to be at most at risk of being eliminated. Which is why Ebony only got that one attempt to try and beat Ivana at the roadblock.
Either that or just try and deliberately put off your opponents. It's like, oh, you missed again.
Actually, here's what the double battle strategy would be. If you're the last two teams, go as fast as you can, because you don't know whether you're going to be the last team or not at the task and get the 15-minute penalty. But if you're the second to last battle, I would go as slow as I possibly can.
Really?
Yeah, because then that team is going to be that much further behind you, especially if they get the penalty too. Actually, no, that wouldn't work out. Never mind.
You could be self-sabotaging, though.
Self-sabotaging, exactly. So yeah. So the only strategy really to work out is that if you're the last two teams, to just go as fast as you can in bowling and make it, instead of making it probably what would have been a 20-minute match is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And turn it into a 5-minute match where everyone's just going rapid fire one after the other. Unless the technology at the bowling alley is so slow because of how faulty the technology is to reset the pins.
Or maybe you just throw it like a baseball.
That would break the lanes. It would you may or may not get sued for that. Or just fall in every shot. Just always step over the line and be like, oh, no, that's a 0, that's a 0, that's a 0. And also this was a funny complaint to read online. I guess a local tried to go to the same bowling alley, but you have to leave your credit card number with them or something.
What?
Yeah, that's what somebody said about the bowling alley. They said, oh, I tried to go there, but they wanted my credit card number. I don't know, for a reservation for a party or something? I don't know, but yeah. And then that's why they didn't go. I have the complaint screen capped. I'll send it to you afterwards, but I'm pretty sure that they were saying something about having to leave a credit card number with them, and they didn't want to do that.
Yeah, this is weird.
Or just their credit card with them in general. I don't know. As like collateral? Oh, this was kind of funny. Because all the teams check in, and Karen and Bert have a pretty cool check into the pit stop because Bert imitates the robot from the Chappelle Show, just breaking out into robot dance moves. And then the last two teams at the roadblock. This is the last thing we get to see of this glorious episode. It's Ivana versus Ebony in a rehearsed and repeated stand-up comedy act.
Isn't rehearsed and repeated the tagline of Amazing Race Canada?
Yes. Vancouver 4 times. And then Ivana, of course, when Ivana completes the stand-up comedy, I think Corey may, when he picked Ivana up, I think he may have unintentionally slapped her on the butt before he set her down. And it's a really quick shot. I'm like, oh, I guess they're pretty good friends.
Who doesn't slap people on the butt when they pick them up?
That's true. It's, just people do that in general who are friendly with each other. Nothing wrong with that unless the other person you know is not cool with that.
Nothing wrong with a little ass slamming.
Well, not like that. That is a whole different level, and I think that takes it from friendship to romantic partnership, I think. And then, of course, Corey and Ivana make it there in 5th place, and Corey's like, oh, the suspense, bro. And then they say they don't want to fight for last anymore, which, are they not going to fight for last anymore? We don't know. And at the start of this episode, I forgot about this, but when Corey and Ivana open up the clue to Newfoundland, I don't know why Corey shouted this, but he says, respected, which I have no idea how that fits into the context of Newfoundland. He's like, he was said, respected, which was awesome. I've never seen anybody react to the first clue like that before. I'm thinking, yeah, I guess Newfoundland is respected a little bit.
Ish. They
were the last to join us. Well, in terms of the provinces, the Nunavut has them beat by about 50 years. But you get the idea. And for the second episode in a row, we do not even get to be shown Andrew and Ebony completing the final task. 2 episodes in a row.
They must have been quite far behind.
Well, I mean, at the end of last leg, they weren't that far behind. It was less than an hour. It was less than an hour behind, who was 5th last leg? Karen and Bert? No, Kevin and Ryan. And then this leg, I guess because this is the thing, it's another episode where there's a lot of tasks crammed into it. Because last week we had 2 active route infos, the detour, the roadblock, and then the U-turn, so it was an additional task on top of that. This episode we get the special clue route info, then the clue at the national park, and then the detour, the speed bump, the double battle, and the roadblock.
It's quantity over quality.
Yeah, which is why a lot of the tasks, it's tough to get too many notes down because it's essentially highlights.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Survivor and Amazing Race is essentially a collection of highlights, but when you have that many tasks in an episode, that's, if you exclude the opening theme and the previously on segment, the next time segment, you've barely got 40 minutes to work with. And that's why you have such cases as Andrew and Ebony not even shown completing the final task for 2 episodes, which I think that may become a regular occurrence because it's an ideal way to cut down on time. Where if you need to make the necessary cut, I guess you may as well do it for the team that you know for sure is going to finish in last place. And the only time when you really need to show that is if they somehow pass the second to last place team on the way to the pit stop.
Yeah, it sort of removes the suspense, so that's the problem.
But most of the time, it's not really that suspenseful to begin with. It takes a hell of a lot of... It's only like 1% of the time that the team who finishes a task in last beats a team that was second to last. It's amazing when it happens to see the last place team pass the second to last place team on the way to the pit stop, but it's so rare that nobody truly thinks it ever happens anymore. I think this season only happened the once, but that's because the three teams left the pit stop in an essential tie for last place. And let's see, we get the French, the Quebecois goodbye, as Ebony says half of her final words in French. Any words to say about Andrea and Ebony?
I like them, but they weren't great.
In terms of this season, they were definitely in that top tier of teams to watch with their unintentional comedy almost every round. But if it was, say, another season with another cast, I think they would have been near the bottom in our rankings, I think.
Oh, 100%.
But this season, they were that breath of fresh air right from quitting the very first task of the season, which fans are still angry about over a month and a half later. And incidentally enough, the only team that's quit a task this season, which is unusual for Amazing Race Canada, but it's an unusual season because even the hardcore fans who absolutely love every single moment of Amazing Race Canada, so there's this one guy, I think Tom Baker, who's probably one of the biggest fans I've come across online, and even he's said that the tasks this season have been too easy and everyone's been getting through them fine.
Yeah, there hasn't been a massive amount of difficult tasks, I guess.
Which is, I think, another one of the problems with this season as to why it's felt like it's gone on for so long, is because that difficulty it hasn't gone up. There hasn't been that moment that makes you go, wow, this whole season so far. Or that just takes it to that next level where you feel like you're reaching the conclusion of the season. It's just been a flat line from the start.
I mean, I know I was reluctant to cover the season anyway, but the fact of the matter is, it's been really flat all season. The casting isn't as good as it has been in previous years. And like Andrea and Ebony are a great example of this because they are the epitome of the Quebecois stereotype, basically, in terms of Amazing Race Canada. They're the sort of Quebecois team that will always get cast. But those around them are just a little bit too flat for my liking.
Yeah.
The tasks have been uninspiring, and we're not doing another Amazing Race Canada that's supposed to be good and fun, because I've said all I need to say about how dreadful this season's been.
Unless we get the miracle of it going full international next season, or majority international.
But it won't. That's the thing. I would put money on Amazing Race Canada not going all international.
Would you put down 10 Croatian Kuna, Michael?
How many was it you gave me? I think it was 5, actually. Let me have a look.
5 Croatian Kuna? What have you done with the Croatian Kuna?
No, it is actually 10, you're right. So, yes, I would put the 10 Croatian Kuna that is currently in my money box on Amazing Race Canada not going full international next season. I will personally give you 10 Croatian Kuna back if they go full international.
That's cool, because I might go to Croatia for a few months.
Yeah, the problem is you'll have to come and visit me to get it, but...
Yeah. You don't want to mail it?
No. It's not that, it'll cost money.
Yeah. Probably costs more to mail it than the 10 Croatian Kuna itself.
Exactly, because the 10 Croatian Kuna's only about £4, wasn't it? We worked it out as.
I think it was £2.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's see. Okay, so we serenaded Andrea and Ebony. Next time we get what I assume is going to be our final international leg of the season with Panama City, where we get a Punch Drunk Detour and a Punch Drunk Task. And lots of colors. It's a very colorful leg, and presumably a non-elimination leg.
Well, one of the next two's got to be non-elimination, hasn't it?
Yeah, but they haven't done a non-elimination at Final Four since Season 1.
I know, but this season sort of deserves a Final Four non-elimination, I think, given how terrible it's been.
But that Final Four non-elimination in Season 1 was one of, if not, probably one of the worst episodes in the series history.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. This season has been that terrible, I would not put it past them to do a Final Four non-elim.
And, yeah, so predictions for next leg, I think Corey and Ivana may pull out a surprise first-place finish, considering their last confessional was that they don't want to fight for last anymore. And I think who's going to finish last next leg? Who's going to be saved by the final non-elimination? Because it can't be Andrea and Ebony. sadly enough, which is why I want them to survive this leg, just so they could hit all 3 non-eliminations. So I'm gonna say I think the previews won't mislead us, and that Karen and Bert will come in last and be saved by the non-elimination.
I think we'll probably see a Karen and Bert last place. Whether it's an elimination or a non-elimination, I'm not sure yet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've nothing else to say about this leg.
Neither do I. All right, so let's end the podcast here. Yeah, that's it for RTV Warriors this week. I'm Logan Saunders. You can follow me at Log Supikuwaki, and you can follow Michael Harmstone at MJ Harmstone.
Yep, and please God, can we have a better leg next week?
I think we will. In fact, I think we will by default. All right, so just chill till the next episode.
See you later.
Holy guacamole!